everybody, welcome back to another episode of Rink's Garage, where today we're going to do some work on my brother's 1998 Silverado. Power steering pump went out, so we're going to switch that out. Also the radiator's got a crack in it, I'll show you. It's kind of a typical thing with the late 90s Chevys, but we got a radiator for it too in that box. So we'll pop the old hood. And this truck, it's got some miles on it. She's well used. I don't know if you can see that. 353, 132. So let's get the hood pop. Oh, it's got the anti-theft hood prop right here. Got to use the old needle nose. As you can see, she's got a little wear and tear on the seat tube and gotten in and out to a couple times. Looks like it also has the typical Chevy anti-theft hood latch. So, get a light here. Power steering pump on these things is right down here under the AC pump. And it does have a hidden bolt behind this pulley. So we're gonna have to pull that pulley off to get at that bolt. So basically we'll take the belt off. I think we gotta pop the AC pump loose, get that out of the way, because this bracket covers the power steering pump. So we gotta pull that bracket off the front. So we can get out the bolts, and as you can see, she's been doing a little leaking, so we got a pressure line just to stick on since we got it apart too. So, but the radiator, it's been siliconed here, but these plastic tanks will crack and then they just seep. This one's been gooped up quite a bit. So first thing we'll do is pop the shroud off, get the radiator out, which is going to make working on that a little easier for sure. So we'll have to drain out the radiator, pop the shroud off, get all that stuff out of the way, get the belt off, all that good stuff. So we'll start by draining out the radiator, make a big mess because usually there's no good spot draining out. So let's get to her. All right, so we got to drain the radiator down. There is a little drain plug on the radiators down in the bottom corner where you can't get at it, so that's convenient. So a little trick I like to do, just take some hose, and we'll stick that guy down as far as we can get her in the radiator. Always keep a couple extra empty jugs around, and then if we do it right, we can just blow some air in there. And get her sealed off good. Might need a rag. But we should be able to push the fluid out of the radiator, get some pressure in there, push the tube line into the jug. Once you get her going, oh, get this down a little lower. She should siphon herself out. And if you got your other jug ready, when this one fills up, we can switch it. Just saves a little mess going on the floor, and we're not even going to get a jug full out of there, looks like. So, put a little more air pressure in there. So that jug's full. I'll probably leave it sit for a little bit. Let some of what's in the radiator hoses and the engine drain back in. And then we'll do it again and get what we can get out of it. And then we work on getting the shroud off, radiator hoses, everything, so we can get the radiator out of it to make room to get at the power steering pump. Now, if you weren't doing a radiator, I think probably all you'd have to do is take this top shroud off, give yourself some room in there just so you can get at it. Alright, we got most everything drained out. I think I'll let it sit here while I take the shroud and stuff off, and I'll probably give her one more try. Just make sure we get as much out as we can. So first we'll take the top of the shroud off. Basically your electrical line you can just tuck up out of the way. And then the shroud's got, I believe, 4 bolts holding the 2 pieces together, top and bottom piece, so we'll zip them out. Then up top we got 3 across the front. I don't know if you can see it on this one, but this one is optional. Over the course of the 350,000 miles she wore through. So we can leave that one in there, no big deal. And then we should be able to just pop this guy up. Get him out of the way. So that opens it up a lot nicer for working on here. I'm not sure if we're going to have to take the fan off or if I can get that pulley pulled off with the fan on. We'll have to see. But, so now, all that's holding the radiator in is 2 top radiator supports, and then of course the hoses. Engine oil cooler lines, and then the transmission cooler lines. So I'll get them zipped out. We'll pop these off and pull the radiator out, get it out of the way, see how big of a mess we can make. And then we'll move on to AC pump and try and get after that power steering pump. Okay, so we got the radiator out. I think I am going to take the fan off. They do make a special tool to get these off. You see there's a nut back there. It's just wound right on the front of the pulley. They make a tool, the wrench that goes on there. You can put your air chisel on it and zip it loose. But I just took the old crescent wrench, got her on there, and gave her a good whack with the soft blow, and she did come loose. So we can wind him off, get him out of the way. Give us some more room. So now next thing is we'll pop these 4 bolts out of the top of one here, one here, one here, one here. First I'll take the belt off. Basically we just put a 3/8 drive breaker bar ratchet in this little square hole. Bend him down, pop the belt off, get that out of the way. Pop them 4 bolts off, get that AC pump out of the way, and then all the bolts are in the front here. I'll get the AC pump off, get the belts off, and then we'll probably pull that pulley off, and I'll show you guys. There's a special puller to pull them off because there is a bolt behind there that you got to get at. So alright, we got the power air conditioning pump out of the way. So I got a power steering pulley puller. Basically it's a little piece with a groove in it that'll hook around here. There's an insert in the end that goes in so it doesn't mash the end of the shaft out. But basically you slide him on there, and then the top piece goes over the top, holds onto that pulley. We'll stick a wrench on there, Compressor wrench just to keep it from spinning. And then we should be able to wind the screw in and pull the pulley right off. Maybe. She is not wanting to go. This does have a spot for a couple bolts to hold it clamped together, so I'm going to have to see if I can come up with some of them. Found the other piece. I've had luck just pulling them off like that before, but this one is pretty stuck in there, so wind him in. And I'll give her another try. Another thing you can notice here, probably why the power steering pump is not real good, she's got a lot of end play. But I think she did move on the shaft, so. There we go. So there you can see the hidden bolts that we need to get the pump out of this bracket. So change of plans, we're going to actually pull this bracket off, and the pump will come with it, and then we can get down on the floor and pop them bolts out. So we'll zip these out. Maybe. Reverse helps. Then, I believe there's one more, if we can see it from up here, on the back side. Where's it at? Down there. I don't know if we can get in there to see it. Hard to tell, but it's right here. And then I think that's got a slot in it, so we just got to loosen that nut, and then this whole thing will slide out the front. So I'll get that loosened up and we'll slide her off. Alright, so I got that bottom one loosened up. I think there is one more bolt down here at the bottom I missed. Now I think we should be able to slide her out of the way here. Get access to our hoses so we can get our hoses off. Maybe. This one is a stud, so we can get him out of the way too. Give us a little more room. Now, I believe on the back side of this, there is a electrical connection. I believe on these they had like a speed sensitive steering, so get him unhooked. And there with the clip. Perfect. So I don't know if you can see in here, but right here there's a connector, and luckily I just broke the end off, not the part that latches it. So that's the connector you got to unplug. And then we got a hose clamp here and a line fitting here. So crack him loose. Maybe some persuasion. And get this guy out, and then we can take the hose clamp off, and we should be able to get this out on the floor and get the pump or the power steering pump out of it. Grab the old pump out of here, down on the floor, make a big mess. Perfect. Now, see if we can get them bolts out. Crack loose anyway. There you have it. We do have a couple other things we'll have to pull off this to get on the new one. And I'll show you that. The speed sensor thing in the back here, I believe we got to switch over to the other pump. So we'll get this cleaned up and we'll take a closer look at that. Alright, so we're back out here. It is a day or so later. Camera battery went dead, so. But I got the power steering pump here up on the bench. So we gotta remove the speed sensor, which it's got a little snap ring on the outside. Then this will slide off, and then we'll have to wind him out. Switch him over to the new pump here. Make sure we get our, I believe this can kind of swivel, so we'll get that kind of back where we want it. And then there's a couple brackets that will switch over to this too. And then we can bolt it back in the motor bracket and stick her back in there. So get that stuff switched over. We'll work on putting her back together. So pull this snap ring off. Looks like then it's got a little E-clip in there also. And then there's a little hex. Alright, so we don't have a 30 millimeter, which is what that nut is. Couldn't seem to get on it with the crescent wrench good enough. So, do the right thing and try 1.25 inch, which is way too big with the big impact. Hopefully she'll crack or loose. It did. It also got stuck on there. Okay. So now I believe that should come out of there. Alright, so we got them cleaned up. This does have 3 O-rings on it, which the kit comes with, so we'll pop them O-rings on, off, throw the new ones on. Okay, so we got the new O-rings on. And push them in there. Get started. Snug him up. Is back on. Throw our bracket on. Throw our solenoid back on there. Knee clip. All right, now we can bolt her back into the bracket. All right, we should be ready to stick it back in the truck. So before we stick the pump and bracket back in, we'll go ahead and take this pressure line out since we're going to be switching that. So that is just this nut here. We'll wind him off, get that out. Then I think I might just put the new pressure line on the pump, set it all in there as one, then because that one will be a little easier to hook up. So I'll pop that hose off and stick the other one on, and we'll get ready to stick her back in. So, snap him back in, and then my stud. we'll get them started on the stud, and then we got to make sure that bottom piece down here slides on that bolt. Just like that. Okay, snug our stud up a little bit. Alright. So now I'll hook that power steering back, hook the pressure line back up down there, get them snugged up. We'll get that nut back on in the back side, back down there, and then we'll work on pressing the pulley back on. Alright, so in order to get the pulley back on, we're going to have to push it on with that puller setup we got. So basically there's a nut with a washer and a bearing that'll sit against the outside of the pulley, and then this piece winds into the end, and the shaft on the power steering pump has a threaded end, so this will wind right in there, and then we just tighten this nut to push the pulley on. So we'll get her set up and we'll squeeze her on there. Got our pusher all put together, and we'll slide the pulley in. We should be able to wind this into the end of the pulley until it's tight. And we just wind our nut up. Now basically we just need to hold this with the 7/16 and tighten this nut down, and it should push it on there until we're lined up. There is some special tools for lining up that belt, but we're just gonna throw the AC pump back on, get the belt on, take a look at it. We can still run it in a little more if we need to. So get the AC pump bolted back down, get the belt on her, see how she looks. Alright, we got the belt on. Looks to be pretty close in line. Did end up about the same as where the other one was. I did take, if you could see in the time lapse, I did just take a flat piece across here and make sure these were in line with each other pretty close. So got the belt back on, and if anybody ever does replace a belt or anything like this, there should be a thing right on your fan shroud, shows you which way it goes, which way it loops around, everything. So alright, power steering pump is in. So next we'll go ahead and throw the new radiator in, and get that all filled up and put some power steering fluid in, and then I'll show you guys how to get most of the air out of the power steering pump before you start it up, because a lot of times they'll make a bunch of noise if they got a bunch of air in them. So we'll get to putting the radiator in. Alright, so I got the new radiator here. It does come with a couple different size fittings to go in. Basically, you're just going to want to match up what was in your old one. Or if it doesn't, you could pull these out. So the training cooler lines are just a compression type fitting, so they don't need an O-ring. But when you put it back in, it also comes with new O-rings on the oil cooler side. You'll want to put a new O-ring down on the end of the oil cooler line here where that sticks in, and it comes with them too. So, and you guys are right here. So basically, we'll just drop the new radiator in, get the lower rad hose on that side hooked up, get our cooler lines in, button everything down, put top shroud on, top radiator hose, and we should be ready for some liquids. All right, so we got her all back together. Got no bolts left over, so that's good. We'll top her off with power steering fluid, put the antifreeze back in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the jack, go underneath the front of the truck, jack it up, fill the reservoir up with power steering fluid, and just turn that wheel all the way back, one way, other, probably about 10 times, and work that air out of there. And then we should be good for startup. Belt stayed on it, so that's good. Let it run a little bit, warm up. Thermostat opens up, and we'll top off the antifreeze. Doesn't look like little couple bubbles in the power steering pump, but it's nice and quiet. Nothing running out on the floor yet, so we'll let her run for a little bit, and then we'll back her out of here. Alright, topped off the fluids. The thermostat did open up, so I was able to put a little more antifreeze in it. Topped off the power steering. Everything looks good. She's not whining or nothing. So I think we're good to go. She's good for another 350,000 maybe. Probably not. But that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.